Well, hi, Jan. It's really good to be on this call with you.
Yeah, great to see you, Cece. Always fun.
Hi, everybody. I'm Cece Sykes. I'm coming in from Chicago, and I'm a senior trainer and consultant with Internal Family Systems Institute. And I do a lot of work with addictive processes and teach IFS and addictive processes. And in the course of my journey, I've run into Jan Winhall, and Jan and I really have hit it off. We have so much enjoyed every conversation that we've had. And
Yeah.
Jan has just written a new book. She's been working with polyvagal, focusing and addictive processes and addiction for a long time now. But her new book is really, really specific, really geared to the clinician and really the client. I
Mhm.
think both really can benefit. And I so enjoyed reading it. I so enjoyed appreciating it. And while I love my model, I love talking to you, Jan, and just hearing what you're doing and how you're combining the body
Mhm.
and focusing inner work, which is obviously important to me too,
Yeah.
and addictive processes and trauma, which is something again that we're really share, which is that connection of all of that. So I'm delighted to have a chance to talk with you about it
Yeah.
um, and
Yeah.
about your book. So I guess maybe I'll just start by saying what what got you to want to combine focusing and the body? Like how did that emerge in you?
With polyvagal theory and
Yes.
focusing in the body. Yeah.
Mhm.
It was really progressive, Cece. It was like I started off way back 45 years ago working with this group of young women who were incest survivors.
Yes.
And I realized in doing that work that the whole DSM thing with the borderline personality disorder and all of that was just it just didn't resonate at all with my body and with
Yeah.
the way I wanted to relate to these young women, person to person.
Right.
And it was too pathologizing and really didn't meet them where they're at. So I went searching to try to figure out, where can I find somebody that can really help with how to get into the body? Because I could see these things that were going on in their bodies. There were
Yeah.
basically like shifts, right? Shifting
Yeah.
back and forth
Yeah.
between in the nervous system, between
Yeah.
this sympathetic flight fight and then the dissociated shutting down. So I found Gene Gendlin's work and got deeply steeped into that and trained like crazy with him for 30 years. And then when I found Steve Porges' work, and of course it spoke so much to what we knew. You remember back when, feminist therapists were talking a lot about establishing safety. Judith Herman's beautiful work, that's still so great. And so then finding polyvagal theory and understanding more and more about neuroception, what happens in the body biologically, neurobiologically. And that fits so beautifully together with the felt sense, the lived experience in the body, and then the polyvagal theory of what's going on in terms of how our body is physiologically wired to survive through the nervous system.
Well, tell me, what do people, I don't, I guess I'll ask from a therapist point of view too, but the client, then we'll get to the client too. But just what do people get wrong when they're trying to fold in polyvagal theory
Mm,
into sitting with your client? How
yeah.
making that shift? How do therapists make that
Yeah.
shift?
How do you help people come in the
Mhm.
body? So there's a lot of psychoeducation in the model and in working with polyvagal theory, helping our clients to understand that these things, all of our experience lives in our bodies. And we know that
Mhm.
because we
Yeah.
can feel how our heart speaks to us, right?
Mhm.
If the door slams or somebody approaches you, you shift up into flight fight, and people know that place in the body. So I find it's often helpful to start with that. And then, of course, people, this, who are really traumatized, they're not going to go straight to the body because it makes sense and it's actually adaptive not to, because it just
Right.
hurts you. So
Yeah.
you don't want to go there. And yet the paradox is that in order to really heal, we have to be integrated into our bodies, right? We have to find safety in the body somehow. So our job is to titrate that, to go very, very, very slowly, and to normalize the adaptive features of those dysregulated autonomic states. They help us to survive, but not to thrive, right? So
Okay.
starting with
Mhm.
something like, so trying to help people to make a little bit of sense out of that, and starting with something like, how would it feel to just notice something in the room? The kind of stabilization. I love that
Mhm.
talks about. Just see if you could pause and notice something that you're attracted to in the room. It can be as simple as starting there, because just to pause is huge.
Isn't it though?
Yeah.
Yeah. In IFS, we would say the protectors
Yeah.
help us, right? Everything's reframe, we reframe, we call it reframing, but it's sort of understanding what the true positive intention is behind these seemingly limiting, restricting, or self-harming behaviors,
Exactly.
right? What's
Yeah.
the intent? We say, what's the intention, or what's the adaptation? How are they adapting?
Yeah. Yeah. And that's why it fits so beautifully. And there's a lot of students that are studying my work who love IFS. And then it adds, FSPM adds to that by just deepening the knowledge about how the body works neurophysiologically. That adaptive feature is about survival.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely, trying to survive. So, what would you say when people say, though, that they do have clients that don't want to go into the body? And I'm just going to say, as someone who also trains therapists,
Yeah.
sometimes it's us therapists who are struggling with it too. There's the two levels of the therapist feeling sensitive to the client because the client's holding so much. And yet at the same time, they know it will be good for them if they
Yeah.
help a little bit. So how do you want to say about that when people are both client and therapists are a little nervous about focusing on the body?
Yeah, I love that. I would say that as clients, we need to be comfortable connecting with our own embodied experience, and
Mhm.
so many of us, as we say, are trauma babies anyway. Like, how did we get here into this work season? And
That's a
so,
whole other subject that I also love to talk about with therapists.
yeah,
What the therapist journey? But
yeah,
yeah,
so you got to do your own journey first, because when you don't just know that it's good for you, but
right.
you know in your body the relief that it can feel when you feel safe to touch into those places, and they don't have the same scary, terrifying energy that they used to have. And when we know that in our own bodies, we know how to gently, gently titrate. And we give that co-regulating message that this is a really scary and then eventually okay thing to be able to touch in. And then eventually it's more than okay. It actually can feel really good to connect in with yourself and with another person, right? So we do it in co-regulation, another polyvagal concept, but not new. We do it together. And when the
Yeah.
client can feel our belief in that, and that you will be okay, you can do this,
I
and
feel
sometimes even to share, I did this is how we heal. And we go slow. There's no, if there, your body's in charge. And the other piece that Gendlin would talk about a lot is that the body knows how to heal itself if you give it what it needs.
Mhm.
If you give it what it
Mhm.
needs, it knows the right next step. This is Jen.
Mhm.
And I know that's true because I've done the work. And I
Mhm.
can see that you do too. See, you can
Mhm.
see, our audience can see Cece is really getting that, right?
Mhm.
Like, we're co-regulating in this place.
Mhm.
And this is the place that we need to invite our clients to come into.
What I hear you saying, see if I'm hearing it exactly right, but what comes through to me from what you're saying, and the benefits, again, for taking this course for therapists, and clients may take it as well, for anyone who wants to know more about this personally and professionally.
Yeah.
And reading your book, what I hear is that the benefit of actually knowing that it works. And I think that issue around safety, I sometimes have clients who are cynical about safety, and they'll say the world isn't safe. So really, what's this about? And why are we going to go find safety? And I have my ways of responding to that, which is that, I want you to be, not automatically in trust of the world, right? Not just sort of, there are times we want to be very, very careful and cautious and so forth. So we're not trying to take away your caution, but
No, that's
so that's not what safety is all about. But I really hear you saying that when you yourself understand the benefit and have the felt sense of feeling safe, that two things happen: that the therapist is sort of finding their own safety, working with their own system to get safe, and that then they're extending sort of into the relational field
relational
with
field.
our clients, that same sense. So some of the confidence, I think, is what I'm hearing you say, that this is going to work.
Yes, the belief in the
Right.
holding, the holding the space. And yeah, I mean, one of the things I talk about in this new book, which is it's like a guide really for my first book, 20 embodied practices. So we take people through embodied practices as the healing journey. And one of the things I spent a fair amount of time talking about in this new book is what is safety? So,
Yeah.
some people, you just never use that word, but you can use words or find the word for them. So, suggesting things like one word is feeling competent. Do you have a place
Oh,
in your
that's
life
so nice.
or an
Yeah.
experience? I think maybe I got that from Bessel van der Kolk maybe 30 years ago, where he
Uh,
said that it was something about building self. And one of the ways of building self was feeling like you could win an argument. Sounds very Bessel like.
I like it. I love it.
You have energy and you have agency and,
Yeah.
and competence, like you're something that
That's
you're
right. That
good at.
sense of agency. And
Yeah,
I like the word empowerment. It's sort of empowering to sort of know. You can feel that in the body. But I
yeah,
like also what you're saying is that you help the client understand what it is they're seeking.
yeah.
So when they've been involved, yeah.
You go there slowly over time through beginning to touch into the body. So you can move from the wall or an ornament or something, a flower, to say the tip of your nose. Usually the tip of your nose or your earlobes or your toes or your fingertips are the least scary places to start to enter the body. And I do
Mm.
a practice that I learned in the focusing community called clearing space backwards. I think it's on YouTube. Good one to watch if you're thinking about doing my course, because it's all about where could you find a place in your life, a moment, just one moment, or a place in your body, like maybe the tip of your nose, that feels all right. It just feels all right. It doesn't have to be anything fancy. It's just okay to bring your attention to your nose. And it's a little bit funny, but it works. Because once you get here, then you can start to invite the person to move out into their cheeks or some other, maybe the top of their head, or just start to explore where in the body, just a little bit that would feel okay. Then you can start to just generalize over weeks and months and years. Like this isn't fast work, right? We know that. And you know what else is so cool that I love about working with parts is that, of course, you can get all these different parts of the self that have very different nervous system states,
Yes.
very different capacities for coming
Mhm.
into felt sense in the body. And it's so
Mhm.
cool.
Yeah, well, I mean, and that's just so similar and such a
Yeah.
good overlap with
Yeah.
IFS, which is just sort of welcoming this diversity. And I like to say welcoming the inner conflict, between the part of me that wants to move forward and the part of me that's afraid to move forward, the part of me that says, of course, yes, I believe you, I can get safe in my body, and the part that says, no, it's not going to work. How many of our clients have said, it's not going to work for me? It's a good in theory, sounds good, Cece, I want to believe you, but those so many things have not worked, and so many people have let them down. So many people in our role, the role of clinician, the role of the person who's supposed to be there for them.
Yeah.
Has their start in life, that person and persons let them down. So we're in that role. So what I'm loving about what you're saying is giving that sense of patience, and the sense of, we're always balancing between the hope of, yes, of course you're going to move forward, and then the patience of saying where you are right now is okay. And I hear you kind of, I really hear you starting in the moment with people.
Yeah, and that in the moment, you might say, well, there's some part of you that brought you here with me today. And who's that? Right? Because there is, otherwise they wouldn't be sitting with us.
Right.
So that part is hopeful. And then there's probably lots of parts that aren't. And again, I love the way that we have this same kind of orientation of experiencing, that you welcome it all. It's all wonderful. Paradox is wonderful.
Right.
Steve Porges started his work with a paradox, and so did I, which I found so interesting. And the paradox for him was about the vagus. It was, how come this vagus nerve that everybody's saying is just about health and growth and restoration is also now seems to be involved in these little babies whose heart rates are sinking? And that was the beginning of his research around the dorsal branch of the vagus nerve, that it goes both ways, not just with the ventral energy of health and wellness, but also the way that it kicks in when we're really in danger. But it can go too far and we could actually die, because then the heart rate goes too low rather than too high. So, and that brings us to a whole other thing about Gentleman's work. He was a philosopher, and his whole, originally, and then became a psychologist, but his work about paradox and understanding and encouraging us to welcome paradox, because that's where creativity is, right?
Well, what paradox did you start with? Did you say, do you have a sense of that? Or was
I started with the women in my group, that the things they were describing that they were doing in self-harming, they knew somehow through their bodies that it was also helping them. So my paradox was, what helps you hurts you. How does that make sense? Yeah. And that's addiction, right? It helps you in the short term. It hurts you in the long term, and you can't stop doing it.
Right. Yeah. So, okay. So that paradox has brought your curiosity in.
Yeah.
Of that, how does that work? And where you went, where I go is systemically, right? So what are the parts that are trying to help them, welcoming that challenge inside? I want to get, I want to do this. I want to stop doing this.
Yeah.
Or I hate myself for doing this. I must do that. That's such a polarity. That sense of
that polarity, is absolutely. It's
I hate that I do this, but I have to do this.
Yeah.
So for you and I both, what we're doing is welcoming both.
Yeah.
We need the parts that hate it. We need to listen to that, those parts that want to keep us on track. Yeah. But we need to listen to the intention of when we get to intention, we hear more about how those parts are trying to help.
Yeah, and I think your word for that is intention. What we would say through a polyvagal lens is adaptation, but it's the same idea.
Yeah, adapting to.
Adapting,
Adapting to what's not safe or what's not, needs that are not met.
Yeah. And in this kind of top-down world that we live in, it's either or. But we understand it's not either or. It's welcoming all of it.
Yeah, and that's what I think is so beautiful about, this is something that draws you and I together, our shared history of starting with women in trauma back in the day. And but this piece about welcoming all, and also for looking for the positive intention between all kinds of behaviors.
Yeah.
So if you were, is there a piece about this? There's so much to it, But is there a piece about this, Jan, that you feel like people could even take away today? I mean, if there's a message or a piece of your work that you feel like people could take away today, I mean, it'd be great because just for them to have a sense of how your course is going to work, how your book works
Yeah.
for the
Well,
clinician.
we start really, the basis of the model is working with understanding the nervous system. So understanding neuroception and teaching people through a graphic model how to teach their clients to connect in with what's going on in terms of how safe they feel in the body. And then working with all of those features of polyvagal theory that we've touched on in terms of the paradigm shift into seeing the body as adaptive.
Right.
That's huge, huge. And then
Yes.
the other system is interoceptive. It's felt sensing. So in our bodies, we have, I think, two pretty basic systems. One is how safe am I? That's neurophysiological. The other is my lived experience. Well, what am I actually experiencing in the world and how that impacts how safe I feel? So those are the two processes we work with, felt sensing and neuroception. And once you have that, and that's what I teach in the course, is what is that and how do you teach it to clients in a very pragmatic way? And then we work with addictive processes, a term I love that you use. I'm borrowing it.
Thank you. Let's
Yeah,
go
and
to
I remember to give you credit because that's important. Is that I developed this 4-circle harm reduction practice, which integrates what's happening in the client's body and how safe they feel, what's happening in their lived experience through felt sensing, and how they use both of those practices, and then create a real roadmap. This 4-circle harm reduction practice is like a roadmap that helps you to get a sense of how you could change some of those behaviors that are harming you in relationship. So harnessing the body's processes. So using felt sensing and being aware of how safe you feel in your body to be able to let go of addiction. Because addictions are there to try to help you keep safe when there isn't enough safety.
right.
Yeah. So
That's
it's very pragmatic as well as being somewhat theoretical.
Well, I like that you're also saying, as someone who's always learning, right? I love to talk to you and
Yeah,
integrate what
me
you're
too.
doing. I love that you say that you do a little cycle web with your clients.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
there's a little bit of just helping them understand, not like lecturing them, but
No,
just helping them understand how it works.
how bodies
And I
work.
think that knowledge to use is empowering. And I
Very
think I also hear you saying a paradigm shift between the body as a place where I've been wounded, which is true,
important.
and yet or exploited,
Yeah.
which is true, but then also that shift, but my body wants to heal and what I'm going to do is it knows how if I
Yeah.
can tune into it. That's a very different paradigm shift from my body is a place of pain, emotional, physical pain, and my body is a place that wants to heal.
Yeah.
That's
My
a very
body
different paradigm, Jan.
yeah, it's like it has been wounded
Mhm,
by outside, but
mhm.
it is the source of
But
healing.
the inside, yeah.
Yeah, from the inside, I can heal myself with the right help. And it's just like with say how your body knows how to heal a cut. It's the same thing with psychological wounding. Bodies know how to heal if you give them what they need. So
That's
yeah,
beautiful, Jan.
I know I love Jen.
Well, we're probably getting ready to wind down. Is there anything more you want to say to people about your course?
I think if you're looking, we've talked about this, Cece. It must be so confusing for people, especially people new coming into the field. There's so many different theories and ideas and tools, and they're all wonderful.
Right.
What the Felt Sense
Not all of them, but go ahead.
yeah,
Many. But no, there's many ways to go that are
that's
good.
that's true. But what the Felt Sense Polyvagal model does is really help people to bring embodiment into whatever they're already practicing, whether it's parts
Uh,
work or even things like CBT. CBT can be really helpful, but if you don't have
right,
a person present in the body, where's that going to go?
right.
So, and bodies know how to,
Thinking too
call it
much.
felt
Mhm.
shifting. shifting into a ventral branch of the vagus that activates healing. And it happens in the body. That's where it happens. That ventral branch is what keeps us healthy and well and restoring in our lives. So it's very important that we go there and harness that and work with that body's capacity to heal. And also then, of course, with executive functioning, which is really important.
Yeah, but
So
so
you can
much.
take, it just gives you that the somatic piece that everybody's kind of talking about. But I find that working with the felt sense and and interoception and neuroception together, because we have both. We have our lived experience and what happens physiologically. And then that gives you a kind of foundation, and you can go all over the place with it and have fun.
Mm. It sounds wonderful, Jan. Well, I hope I invite all of you to check out Jan's book. It's amazing, and certainly to check out this course for a lived experience of the book.
Yeah, we do a lot of practices in the course. So you're doing your
Yeah.
own work as you're
Mhm.
hearing me and studying, seeing the visuals. We do lots of visual work with graphic models as well. So
Good. So that the people taking the course are going to experience a little of this as well as just get the concepts.
oh, always with me. You get the concept through your own experiencing. So we do a lot of body practices. And once you know what they feel like in your own body and you work through that stuff, then, it's just so natural to be that way with other people.
That's I'm getting regulated just hearing about it. I just took a big breath. I thought, oh, I'm getting regulated.
What just happened there is what we call the felt shift.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
felt shift is really what I put together in the model, was recognizing that felt shift, that physical release in the body that Gendlin talked about, is actually an autonomic state shift into ventral energy. And that's what I asked Steve about when I had a chance to meet with him. I'm like, I think these things go together. That felt shift is what happens in the nervous system. That's why our clients shift from sympathetic or dorsal into sympathetic down into a ventral place. You see the breath and the chest open and expand. And it feels better.
Right. In IFS, we say we have unblended from that part.
Yes.
We have some
Yes.
wording around that.
Exactly.
It doesn't have that somatic language to it, but we're always tracking that same process.
Yeah, and then it's so much fun to bring those together, which is what we've talked about doing, is offering something where we can bring both of those models right together and give that to people. And that's what I want us to do. Next.
Step two.
Step two, Cece.
Oh, well, thanks so much, Jan, for talking with me. And I'm looking forward to more.
Yeah, me too. Always. Bye for now, everybody.
Bye,
Thanks for
everybody.
joining us. Yeah.
Thank you.
Bye.